You're welcome to this edition of Majalisa again. We are discussing the happenings in nearby West African country, that is the Benin Republic. You will recall that on the early hours of December 7th, a faction of the Benin's National Guard and officers calling themselves Military Committee for Refoundation, CMR, uh, attempted a coup against President Patrice Talon in Cotonou. According to reports, they attacked the president's residential area, seized the state broadcaster SRTB, and went on air to announce Talon's removal, the suspension of the constitution, the closure of borders, and the dissolution of state institutions. The coup was led by one Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigri, a senior officer with ties to Talon's security apparatus, who briefly claimed power as head of the CMR. The putschists justified their action by citing Talon's alleged mismanagement, favoritism in promotions, neglect of fallen soldiers' families, deteriorating security, northern Benin cost to social service, higher taxes, and restrictions on political activity. And within a short time, the Nigerian government claiming to have received distress calls or letters from the authorities in Benin Republic sent Nigerian Air Force to the country. They were said to have bombed and chased out the coupists. And reports this evening are indicating that the wife of the chief coup plotter, Tigri, who is at large, was injured and that his daughter was killed. Of course, this brings up several issues about Nigeria and what is happening around the world. With me to discuss this situation again is Dr. Joel Ikemi, political scientist who lives in Portugal. Dr. Joel, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, sir.
Dr. Joel, what do you think is the implications of the Nigerian government going to attack the coup plotters in Benin Republic, and apparently successfully, because the government in Benin has come out to announce that the coup has failed?
Okay, once again, thank you for inviting me to Majalisa. You see, when the news broke yesterday, I decided to follow up on the events, because one thing about coup in Africa, if you look at from the 60s, when Africa started getting independence and all of that, and then we saw multiple coups around Africa. One thing about coup is that it has contagious effect, meaning that the success of a coup in one country will lead to coup in another country. And we saw that happening among the few Francophone countries that are currently under military rule now, how they took over. So that's the contagious effect about coup. But coming back to the coup, in attempted coup in Niger Republic and Nigeria's intervention. Now, three things I kept, seeing Nigeria's intervention, seeing the president's tweets about the swift response, seeing the president's spokesperson's response, claiming that there was a swift response. Now, three things came into mind. And since that yesterday up until now, these three things have dominated discourse around the coup itself and Nigeria's intervention in that coup. First, it brought about a debate about sovereignty. Just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump issued a statement about Christian genocide in Nigeria and then America's intervention. If nothing is done by the Nigerian government, that they will come gun a-blazing to ensure that these terrorists are wiped out. And that brought a lot of division in Nigeria, because some of the view that, look, Donald Trump's intervention will mean violation of our sovereignty. Some said, look, Donald Trump's coming to target the North, and what have you. And that debate itself, resurrected yesterday up until now. A lot of people have said that, look, Tinubu, Nigerian response means sending fighter jets and sending foot soldiers to quell the coupists and to restore democratic governance in Venezuela. Why is the Nigerian government jittery? Or why, are people worried that Donald Trump is coming to help people who have been tagged helpless in terms of the Christians in Nigeria, considering that they've been killed in hundreds and in thousands? So that is that. Now, the most important aspect of this Nigerians' response is the fact that Nigerians swift, the word swift response is one thing I still find it very difficult to understand. That what is even happening in Nigeria, whether we like it or not, is even far worse for the fact that we have bandits and terrorists, ISWAP, Boko Haram bandits, high level of kidnapping going on unabated in Nigeria. And the fact that the government of the state, the federal government, which is supposed to rise above the intellectual level of everybody, is actively involved in terms of negotiating with these bandits to free people that have been kidnapped, points to the fact that there is a problem in Nigeria. And there were allegations that the Nigerian swift response was based on protecting France's interests. And we all know the kind of relationship the current president of Nigeria seemed to have with France. And we all know how France is maintaining a neo-colonial stand in Benin. Now, if you can respond swiftly to coup plotters in Benin, then what happens to the insecurity in Nigeria? What is happening in Nigeria is even worse than a coup that's happening in Benin Republic. And then we've not seen the government intervene in this swift manner. There's no day we wake up in Nigeria that nothing, at least 10 people, 20 will be killed due to insecurity. And then we've not seen a swift response from Nigeria. And the reason, one of the reasons I said that what is happening in Benin in terms of the coup plot and what have you, is even worse than a coup, simply because what Nigeria has expended in terms of insecurity is even far more, more than the GDP of like 3-4 African countries put together. That's another aspect of Nigeria's intervention in the coup. Another thing I want to talk about is insecurity. For the fact that if Nigeria can respond swiftly to coup in Benin and cannot respond to, in likewise manner, cannot respond to the insecurity in Nigeria, it simply means one thing, that insecurity has become an integral part of Nigerian political system, whether we like it or not, because it has now come to define how power is grabbed in Nigeria. Because what we see in Nigeria is more like a pattern that happens before an election year, and it has great effect, has a defining effect on or impact on what happens in the election. So that's what we are seeing. Insecurity, the government is not trying to make us understand that insecurity has come to stay. It has become a bargaining chip for power grabbing in Nigeria. Because otherwise, how do you explain that government is negotiating with bandits? How do you explain that with this high level of insecurity and the kind of resources at disposal of Nigeria? I told somebody, in this 2025 budget alone, over $3 billion was earmarked to fight insecurity. And all we see is just making billionaires out of security men or security chiefs and the rest of them with nothing, to account or nothing to show for all of the monies that have been expended or earmarked for the insecurity. Whether we like it or not, has become an integral part of politicking and Nigerian political system, because it now defines how power is grabbed. We all know the core northerners, they are seriously interested, because this might just sound like a conspiracy theory. It might sound like because these are some of the things people said before the 2015 elections. And now we're seeing a pattern.
Look at it. We look at it from the geopolitics that, of course, having failed to stop the coup plotters in Burkina Faso and Niger Republic, the government will be feeling good that it has been able to stop a coup in another African country. Don't you think so?
No, for me, I think it may have been so, considering the fact that I think Nigeria is more worried, aside the fact that France is so much interested in what happens in Benin Republic. I think Nigeria is even more worried about the coup succeeding in Benin Republic, just so it doesn't have a contagious effect on Nigeria. What the government is doing at this point is the fact that the success of the coup in Benin might have, a contagious effect on what happens in Nigeria. Let's even forget the fact that France has put so much pressure on Nigeria, because what stopped them from doing the same in Guinea? What stopped them from doing the same in Niger? You see, I think in that case, when it comes to the economic and the geopolitics of the whole thing, the border between Nigeria and Benin Republic, I think, plays a very significant role in the success and otherwise of the coup in Benin Republic.
Yeah, in the last few months, the Al Qaeda, the same group that is about to overrun Bamako in Mali, has claimed that in the first place it came into Nigeria from Benin Republic, and because they control northern Benin Republic, and they killed a soldier, they first publicly acclaimed Al-Qaeda activity in Nigeria. About 2 weeks ago, the same Al-Qaeda, the JNIM that operates in Mali, admitted to have operated in Nigeria and killed 2 soldiers. Will you think that maybe the government was responding so that they don't complicate the security challenges along the border?
Now, when we talk about borders, something came up recently where they talked about the fact that we have of the over 1,923 borders that we have in Nigeria, that only 81 of those borders are manned by security, by immigration, and the rest of them. So that means we still have over 1,800 more borders not manned in Nigeria. Yes, I did some findings, and then I talked to somebody who worked in some of those places, and he mentioned how these borders are so porous and how people just move in and out freely. So sometimes this thing can happen. And if it's about the issue of border, some of these terrorist organizations there are borders with Chad and there are borders with Niger. So if that is the case, if that is the main reason, I think some of those other borders too will have been used by the terrorists to come into Nigeria. And then some of those borders are also used for the proliferation of light weapons and guns and the rest of them. So for me, I think regarding the Benin, when it comes to the issue of border, I think the proximity, because of that semi-border and the rest of them, the proximity of Nigeria, because if the coup had succeeded in Benin Republic, I'm telling you, it would have had serious effect on Nigeria. Because one, there's similarity of language between some part of Nigeria, Lagos part, with the Benin Republic. And there are so many people who live in Benin Republic who are also Nigerians. And another thing is, what you should notice that when the news broke out, a lot of people in Benin Republic took to the street in support of the revolutionary force. Up until this evening, a lot of people took to the streets in their thousands, celebrating and in support of the coup. So you imagine that kind of thing happening, and what you have in Nigeria right now, because whether we like it or not, Nigerians are fed to their teeth with all this high level of insecurity and this poverty and what have you. They say it was the success of the coup in Nigeria that motivated the coup in Benin Republic. So in order to prevent history from happening, I think it's one of the reasons why the government responded this swiftly. So if it's about the border alone, I don't think the government will want to carry out the kind of response, send fighter jets to Benin Republic in the manner they did.
Yeah, you've listed some issues, including the fact that Nigerians were disappointed when the former Minister of Defense did say that Nigerian forests were so thick that bombs could not penetrate to destroy the bandits, and yet these bombs successfully stopped a coup in Benin Republic. So that might make people to believe that there's complicity of government and security agencies in bandits having the field day that they were having. But as well, there are some factors that people have raised. What is your view about the fear that the armed forces are already engaged in multiple internal operations against Boko Haram, ISWAP, bandit groups, communal violence, oil-related crime, and foreign deployment, however limited, may tie up more assets and may worsen the security situation in Nigeria?
For me, I don't think any foreign intervention will worsen the security situation in Nigeria. And over time, we've seen how Nigerian forces...
I'm talking about Nigeria's intervention in Benin Republic.
Okay.
That is foreign intervention.
Yes. I don't see that happening, because in Nigeria today, and I might not have all the facts, I might not really have all the real facts about those issues, but I don't think it will help to fuel anything, because when policies or when issues involve government, the government takes it more serious, because what is being threatened is the government access to power. So because this power is threatened, I think the government will do whatever it takes to protect their own interests and all of that. So I don't see this as any way, because whether we like it or not, when the fighter jets were deployed, normalcy has returned to Benin Republic. So all they need to do now, do a critical assessment of the situation. How did it happen in the first place? How do we prevent this from happening? Because the elites, their power and interest is involved at this point. So they'll have to do everything possible to ensure this doesn't happen. So I don't see that intervention as escalating any form of insecurity, whether in Nigeria or anywhere. And if you look at in Nigeria, the fight against Boko Haram, ISWAP, and the rest of them, why haven't we, achieved so much success in this regard? It's because there's sabotage. We've heard from officers on the field, and they tell you sometimes they see the bandits coming, they see this coming, and then they cannot engage because an order has already been given to stand down. It's something an order has to be given from somewhere. So if these orders do not come, and these are some of the reasons why the fight against insurgency or the Boko Haram, ISWAP, banditry, and kidnapping has not yielded so much success over the years. Though we have all it takes, we have one of the best infantry corps in Nigeria, in Africa, and the rest of them. In our own, imagine within less than a few hours, normalcy has returned to Benin. But you ask yourself, why can't we replicate same in Nigeria? Because of the sabotage that happens within the Nigerian state. And there've been assertions that when it comes to the issue of banditry, that the Minister of State for Defense knows some of these bandits. And I saw a video about someone from Zamfara who alleged that one time one of the banditry kingpins was arrested, and then they got a call from Matawale saying that this is my boy, and the guy was secretly released. And then we've seen soldiers engaging Boko Haram in Kalabalge, Coup and the rest of them, saying at some point they will be asked to stand down. Even if they call for reinforcement, it doesn't come at a time it's supposed to come. Soldiers would have been killed. So I think we have what it takes when it comes to managing insecurity. But the sabotage that we see from within has made Nigeria not achieve so much in this regard over the years.
Now, Joel, do you think that the jihadists may adapt to what has happened now? Because jihadists, that is the Al Qaeda group that is threatening Mali, is in Benin, northern Benin. Will this Nigerian intervention not be a further proof of the influence of Nigeria? May make Al Qaeda and its operatives to target Nigeria, especially they've targeted military personnel, killed 3 already around the border area. Is there a possibility, from your thinking, from the way Al Qaeda operates, that they may up their attacks on Nigeria?
I think it all depends on motives, because for Nigeria, it's about state capture, which is about invasion. That's what I think. In Nigeria, I think it's about invasions, state capture. It's about perpetuating a certain class of people in power, a certain region, a certain ethnic or region in power perpetually in Nigeria. For me, I think that's the motive. So if sometimes before we even understand what the jihadists are doing, they're already taking their roots in everything. So I don't really see the same thing as what we see in northern Benin, with the jihadists and all of that with Nigeria. Nigeria is an oil-rich country. I've said it before and I'm saying it again. The purpose of the jihadists fight in Nigeria, or the jihadist intervention, jihadist activities in Nigeria, is simply one thing: to Islamize Nigeria. That is just that. And now they are coming out in full force. So I think what their operations in different parts of Africa, I think the motive is different.
So you think that they will increase their activities in Nigeria?
Yes, they will increase. We've seen it happen. It will definitely increase. This insecurity and jihadist thing that we talk about in Nigeria, it has become the part of the Nigerian political system, whether we like it or not. We cannot run away from that fact, even if people will keep saying that is not the case. But that's the case, because we saw it as a strategy in 2014 and how it led to power capture in 2015. And now we're seeing a repeat of that. We're seeing it happening right before our eyes. So for the jihadists, is the fact that a certain class or certain region of Nigeria must be the one that would be at the center of Nigerian affairs. So that's what I think. And let me just make it very clear. The purpose of the jihadist activities in Nigeria is primarily to Islamize Nigeria. That's just it.
The Nigerian government and political elites have been very vociferous in fighting against the intervention of the United States in Nigeria, yet Nigeria has decided to go and intervene. How do you see this playing out? Do you see many more communities in Nigeria coming out to demand for intervention from United States and other countries that are interested in fighting off this increasing wave of insecurity, kidnappings, destructions, and displacement of literally millions of people from their homes.
Yes, definitely. And since yesterday, I think I've monitored this exact point, and relating to this question you asked. I said yesterday, I've heard more calls, because some people have talked about the question of sovereignty, about maintaining Nigerian sovereignty. Why would the US come and intervene in what's happening in Nigeria? Some have talked about sovereignty, and some of those persons who talked about sovereignty have now seen that a big brother situation can happen even among countries. Benin Republic did, they do not have the wherewithal or the manpower or firepower to quell the coup plotters and all of that. They had to resort to France. France called on Nigeria, and Nigeria had what it takes, or we have what it takes to do that. And we deployed this machinery to ensure that the coup was averted. So there have been more calls now, because for what we are seeing, especially with the release of the 100 girls, release of this, it is now the hand of the government in everything that happens. And every day we see people are kidnapped in hundreds, in Kaduna, everywhere. And then these people will be released to government officials, especially to the office of the NSA. Where are the bandits who carried that? Because kidnapping is a federal offense. It's a capital offense. Where are the bandits who carried out this act? Where are their dead bodies? Would they be prosecuted? It means the government has negotiated with these people. Monies have exchanged hands. A lot of things have exchanged hands, in exchange for the kidnapped victims. And what you are doing when you negotiate with bandits, you give them money. What you are doing, you are just giving them the opportunity to expand their arsenal. You are giving them the opportunity to expand their criminal activities. So that's what the government have done over the years. So we just see these things, they just keep happening every day. So with this now, it's very, very clear that the government in Nigeria, doesn't have what it takes. Or even if they have what it takes to quell the insecurity or the banditry or what have you in Nigeria, the government doesn't have the political will to do that. And just that's why I came up with the conclusion. I came to the conclusion that insecurity, whether we like it or not, has now become, because they are playing politics with insecurity. Insecurity has now become an integral part of Nigerian political system. It has now become a point or a strategy for grabbing power. That's exactly what it is. So if insecurity has become politics, so that of course we definitely will not see swift response of government. If the government wants to target the bandits and everything, the government knows what to do. And have you asked yourself, even with the threat by the US and Donald Trump, suddenly as if it's emboldened the bandits to even kidnap more people. You see them every day on social media. So it simply tell you that what we are seeing as far as fighting insecurity is concerned in Nigeria is purely politics and has become a strategy for power grabbing. That's my point about this whole thing.
Well, in the last few minutes, we've been speaking with Dr. Joel Ikemi, a political scientist who lives in Portugal. Joel, thank you very much for spending this time with us to explain the situation that has happened and the implications.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Speak to you another time.
Thank you, sir.